Hi everyone, welcome back to Monroe City Schools TV. My name is Miss Mannering and I teach at Cypress Point University Elementary. Today we are going to be continuing our unit on hurricanes and doing lesson 2 of our unit. So hopefully in front of you, you have a pencil and a piece of paper. If not, pause this video and grab it, or run and grab it really quick if you're watching this on TV. So yesterday in lesson 1, we read Surviving Hurricanes, Children's True Stories, to learn about experience children have during a hurricane. We also learned how to find examples of emotion in nonfiction text. So today, we are going to learn the difference between a first-hand and a second-hand account. We are also going to identify first-hand and second-hand accounts in the text. Now you may be saying, Miss Mannering, what's a first-hand account and what's a second-hand account? I have no idea. Well, let's talk about it. So a first-hand account is a description of an event from someone who was there to experience it. A second-hand account is a description of an event based on research or told by someone who was not there to see it. So if I were to tell you about my morning, I may say, this morning I woke up, I snoozed my alarm about 3 times because I do not like getting out of bed. Then I brushed my teeth, I curled my hair, and I drove to work. That would be my experience because I was there and I would be telling you about it. Now a second-hand account might be where you go and you tell your mom, Mom, this morning Miss Mannering got up and she snoozed her alarm, she curled her hair, and she went to work. That's you telling about my experience. You weren't there to see it, so that would be a second-hand account. First-hand accounts use words like I, me, mine, us, our. Just like when I told my story, I said I curled my hair. I snoozed my alarm. I didn't want to get out of my bed. Second-hand account use words like he, she. Again, if you were to tell this, you would say she curled her hair. You're talking about someone else and someone else's experience. And then with first-hand accounts, you might see quotes. Quotes are where someone is actually talking in the text. You can tell it's a quote because it has quotation marks around it, and we will see that in our text today. So first-hand accounts might be things like a diary or a journal where you write about your own experiences, speeches, or autobiographies. Second-hand accounts may be something like a textbook or a biography. But the big question to ask yourself when you're trying to figure out, is this a first-hand account or a second-hand account, was the person telling the account or telling the story present at the event? Were they really there? If so, it's a first-hand account. If not, that would be a second-hand account. So now that we've figured out what a first-hand account is and what a second-hand account is, let's look for that in our text. So as we read Surviving Hurricanes, Children's True Stories, I want you to look for first-hand accounts in our text. Anytime you see a first-hand account, I want you to write down on your paper what page you found it on, and maybe write the beginning of the account so you can find it later. Today we are going to read about the Galveston hurricane and the hurricane in New Orleans, Louisiana. Now I know we've already read about these 2 hurricanes, but yesterday when we read about it, we were looking for emotions. Today we are going to be looking for first-hand accounts. Also, when you read something more than once, you notice new things. So let's read about the Galveston hurricane again and see what else you notice today. Sarah Littlejohn, who was 8 years old in 1900, lived in Galveston, Texas. Galveston sits on an island in the Gulf of Mexico, about 3.2 kilometers or 2 miles off the coast of Texas. The summer of 1900 had been one of the hottest on record. Finally, on Saturday, September 8th, a cool breeze began to blow. Sarah spent that Saturday morning playing with her friend, Minnie Borden. In the afternoon, Minnie went home, and Sarah's father returned from work. He had news. He had spoken with a local meteorologist who was predicting a hurricane. Like most people in Galveston, Sarah's family would stay at home and wait for the storm to pass. There was no safe place to go. Now I want to stop right now and let's ask ourselves, did we find any first-hand accounts on this page? I'm seeing a lot of words like he, Minnie, Sarah, she. I don't see any words like I, me, or mine. Sarah is not the one telling about this experience, it's someone else. So on this page so far, I only see second-hand accounts. Let's keep reading to see if we can find any first-hand accounts. Our next page, daily life. In 1900, meteorologists watched the sky and the ocean for clues about the weather. They measured air temperature, wind speeds, and air pressure. High temperatures, high wind speeds, and low pressures may indicate that a powerful storm is on its way. Today, meteorologists also depend on radar and satellite pictures of storm systems. Weather predicting has improved since 1900. The huge floods that can accompany hurricanes are strong enough to force houses from their foundation. And again, we see our picture with the house that was lifted from its foundation. I don't see any first-hand accounts here, so let's keep on reading. Disaster. The Galveston hurricane is the worst natural disaster in U.S. history. More than 6,000 people drowned or were killed from flying debris. The Category 4 hurricane destroyed 3,636 houses. For the survivors, there was no clean water to drink and very little food. The Red Cross and other relief groups rushed to help. Rebuilding. When the people of Galveston rebuilt their city, they built a seawall to protect against high waves. Engineers began to raise the level of the city by 5 meters or 17 feet at the seawall to prevent flooding. It was a huge job, but it helped protect Galveston from future disasters. In our picture here, we see a man. In 1904, a man stands on top of a portion of Galveston's new seawall. So again, I haven't seen any where the person experienced the hurricane has talked about it. Let's see if we can find anything on this next page. On the scene, Clara Barton wrote letters to the U.S. government from Galveston about the flood. On September 18, 1900, she wrote, "There seems to be an unusually large number of children with no one to care for them or who knows them. We will help them as far as possible, gather them in, and the world will give them homes." Now when I see this, I see a quote. And from a while ago, we talked about how quotes, people's actual words, can often be a first-hand account. So let's look at that quote again. "There seems to be an unusually large number of children with no one to care for them or who knows them. We will help them as far as possible, gather them in, and the world will give them homes." In this quote, Clara is talking about how she's going to help these children. I see that word "we" there. We're going to help them. Clara actually experienced this. She actually experienced helping people in a hurricane. So I think we just found our first-hand account. And then the rest of the page. Clara Barton was the head of the American Red Cross in 1900, and we have our picture of Clara. And then at the bottom, helping hand. New York City children raised $27,907, over $712,000 in today's dollars, to help the children of Galveston. And that is the end of the Galveston hurricane. So in that passage, we found one first-hand account from Clara Barton. Again, we saw the words like we, I, and we also saw quotation marks to show us that it was a first-hand account. Now we're going to go on and we are going to read about New Orleans, Louisiana. As we read, I want you to pay close attention for any more first-hand accounts. And again, if you see one, I want you to write it down on your paper. You can even write down the page number that you find it on. So we're going to start on page 16 with New Orleans, Louisiana, 2005. On August 28, 2005, a storm in the Gulf of Mexico developed into a Category 5 hurricane. It headed toward the Louisiana and Mississippi coast of the United States. Chris's story. 11-year-old Chris Nungester lived in a suburb of New Orleans, Louisiana. He was watching TV as a meteorologist predicted that Hurricane Katrina would hit New Orleans. "It freaked us out," Chris said. Everyone in the neighborhood began boarding up windows and gathering emergency supplies. Now, let's go back here. Who is Chris? Chris is someone who experienced a hurricane. He experienced the Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans in 2005. So he experienced it. He's telling us about it. That's a first-hand account. But to prove even more that it's a first-hand account, I see that it says it freaked us out. Us is one of those words that can help us think, this is a first-hand account. Great job. On to our next page. Leaving home. People were ordered to evacuate. About 960,000 out of 1.2 million people in New Orleans left the area. Chris and his family went to New Iberia, Louisiana. Roads were jammed with traffic. When Chris reached New Iberia, he watched TV reports of rain gushing into the streets of New Orleans. Dikes surrounding the city had broken, and the streets filled with water. Stuck in the city. Not everyone could leave New Orleans. Many who stayed were too old or sick to leave. Others were poor. They had no car, and public transportation was not working. Flood waters covered the city of New Orleans. We see that in our picture. And then number crunching. In total, 1,833 people died because of Hurricane Katrina. In Louisiana, almost half of those who died were over 75 years old. Many were too sick or poor to leave their homes. So I want you to take a second and look on this page. Did you see any first-hand accounts? If so, write them down now. Temporary homes. Some evacuees stayed in disaster centers or were taken in by kind strangers. Others moved into temporary trailers provided by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. Chris and his family moved in with an aunt and uncle in Houston, Texas. He began attending a school in Houston. The other children were kind, and the teachers were sympathetic. And down at the bottom we have our picture of people on cots, and our caption reads, "The Astrodome Sports Stadium in Houston, Texas was used as a disaster center to house hurricane evacuees." Did you see any first-hand accounts there? Write it down on your paper if so. If not, that's okay, but if you did, go ahead and write it down. Alrighty, our last page. Returning home. Chris flew home in mid-October. "Seeing the damage from above was frightening," he said. He saw boats and houses sprawled over roads. There was plenty of work ahead for the hurricane victims. Chris's family was lucky. Even though the first floor of their house was damaged, it could be fixed. Sewer water had backed up in the pipes of their house. It sank. In our picture, we see our people in the boats, and the caption reads, "People in Metairie, where Chris lived, use boats to travel through the flooded streets. Helping hand. Talia Lemon of Iowa was 10 years old when Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans. She set up a website called randomkid.org to raise money for hurricane victims. In the first 3 months, children raised more than $5 million for hurricane victims. Alrighty, so I want you to stop and I want you to look over your notes. Where did you find first-hand accounts? Did you find any on page 17? No, I didn't find any on page 17. This page is someone else telling about Chris's story. I see words like Chris, they, other people, many who stayed. Those are all telling about someone else. The person writing that did not actually experience the hurricane. Let's go on page 18. Did you find any on page 18? I didn't either. Again, these are second-hand accounts. Someone else telling the story. Let's look on page 19. That's right. On page 19, we found one first-hand account. Can anyone yell out to me, what first-hand account did you find? Exactly right. When it says, seeing the damage from above was frightening, he said. Who's talking there? Chris is talking. So we see that dialogue. We see that he is telling about his story. He experienced that. He saw the damage. So that is a first-hand account from Chris. Now I want you to ask yourselves, is there any connection between the first-hand account we found today and the emotions we found yesterday? If I go back and I look at those first-hand accounts where it says, seeing the damage from above was frightening, I remember yesterday we looked at that and that told us that people after a storm might feel scared. I remember in our first story, that quote also showed us emotion. So I think that we can decide that first-hand accounts often show emotion. When someone tells about their own experience, it shows us the emotion that they may have felt during that event. And so oftentimes oftentimes authors will include first-hand accounts to help show their readers the emotion that someone may feel during an event. So now we are going to look at sentences and fragments. Now some of you may have heard those two words before, but I want to review what is a sentence and what is a fragment. So a sentence is a complete thought. It has a subject, who or what is doing something, and a predicate, the action that that person or thing is doing. A fragment would only have one of those things. It would either be missing a subject or a predicate. So if I were to say, Miss Mannering walked her dog yesterday, I have my subject, Miss Mannering, that's who's doing something, and my predicate, walked her dog, that's what I was doing. If I were to say, Miss Mannering, that's not a complete sentence. What is Miss Mannering doing? We don't know. So today, we are going to identify sentences and fragments. Our directions are to write S if the words form a complete sentence, capitalize and punctuate the sentences. Write F if the words are a sentence fragment. Change the fragments into complete sentences. On your paper in front of you, I want you to do this with me. Let's look at the first one together. Number 1, are scared of a hurricane. Now we need to decide, is that a sentence or a fragment? Are scared of a hurricane. So I see here it's telling me what someone's doing. Someone is scared of a hurricane, but Does it tell me who is scared of a hurricane? No. So this is a fragment. Now, in our directions, it says to change the fragment into a complete sentence. So let's think about, who is scared of a hurricane? Well, based off of our reading the past 2 days, I think we can decide that most people are scared of a hurricane. They're dangerous storms. They destroy buildings. They flood towns. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to say most people are scared of a hurricane. Notice that I just added on my subject. I did not change the predicate at all. I left that just as it was in our example up here. So most people are scared of a hurricane. I also capitalized the first word in the sentence, and I put my punctuation or a period at the end. Again, please be writing this down with me so you can practice writing complete sentences. Let's look at our next one together. Okay, number 2, communities join together. Do you think, is this a sentence or is this a fragment? Let's look at it. Does it tell me who or what is doing something? Yeah, see here it says communities. That's the who or the what. That's our subject. What are communities doing? They join together. So we have our subject and our predicate. Who's doing something and what action are they doing? So this is a sentence. Are we done? No, we have to rewrite this sentence and make sure we have our correct capitalization and punctuation. So can anyone tell me, what should I do to the first word of a sentence? You're right, I need to capitalize it. So I'm going to write a capital C. Communities. And now I'm going to copy this sentence just as it is above. I'm not going to add anything. I just want to practice writing a complete sentence. I'm just going to copy down what I have above. It's already a sentence. Communities join together. Now at the end of my sentence, what do I need? Punctuation, you're right. I'm going to use a period at the end of this sentence. Great job. Okay, we have one more left. Our third one is New Orleans. I'm going to give you about 5 seconds to decide, is this a sentence or a fragment? Yell it out to me. You're right, this is a fragment. So I'm going to put an F in my blank right there. This is just New Orleans. It's a place. Isn't tell me what happens in New Orleans? So what happens in New Orleans? Think back to what we've read so far. What happened to New Orleans in the hurricane? You're right, it was flooded. So my sentence could be New Orleans was flooded during Hurricane Katrina. And of course, I'm going to have my punctuation at the end. Now you may be wondering, Miss Mannering, I see you capitalized more than just the first word of that sentence. Why did you do that? Well, New Orleans is the name of a place. And I know that we always capitalize names of towns. So I capitalized New Orleans, both words. And then down here, it's Hurricane Katrina. The names of hurricanes are also proper nouns. So we always capitalize the name of a hurricane. So I'm going to capitalize both hurricane and Katrina because that's the hurricane's name. So again, our sentence is New Orleans was flooded during Hurricane Katrina. Do you have that down? You may have something different than mine. You may say New Orleans was destroyed during Hurricane Katrina. That would work as well. So in this lesson, you have identified examples of first-hand accounts in surviving hurricanes, children's true stories. You also practiced writing complete sentences. Great job, you guys. Give yourself a pat on the back. I'm so proud of you. Bye.